My son called me from his office, his voice trembling. Mom, I need to ask you something strange. Does Lisa wear expensive French perfume? I paused, confused. No, honey, your wife only uses that drugstore lavender soap. You know we can't afford luxury perfumes? His voice dropped to a whisper. That's impossible, Mom, because yesterday when she hugged me, she smelled like Chanel No. 5. But this morning, she smells like cheap soap again. At that very moment, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Lisa standing there, smiling sweetly, smelling distinctly of lavender soap. My heart began to race. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my story from. I want to know how far it has reached. This morning started like any other Tuesday in our home in Portland, Oregon. I was in the kitchen, my hands deep in dishwater, scrubbing the breakfast plates while the morning sun streamed through the yellow curtains I had sewn myself years ago. My son Marcus had left early for his accounting firm downtown, his briefcase heavy with files and his mind already at work. My granddaughter Emily, that precious 6-year-old angel with her mother's dark curls, had been picked up by the school bus just minutes before, her lunchbox decorated with unicorn stickers swinging from her tiny hand. Lisa, my daughter-in-law, Marcus's wife of 7 years, had gone upstairs after breakfast. Her soft voice floated down to me from the second floor. Mom Rose, I'm going to take a quick shower before I head to the grocery store. All right, sweetheart, I called back, smiling to myself as I dried the last plate. I had barely hung the dish towel on its hook when the landline rang, its shrill tone cutting through the quiet house. I dried my hands on my apron and hurried to answer, expecting maybe Helen from next door or perhaps the dentist's office confirming Emily's appointment. Mom, it was Marcus, and something in his voice made me grip the receiver tighter. Yes, honey, is everything all right at work? There was a pause filled with the ambient noise of his office, keyboards clicking, phones ringing in the background. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. My heart skipped a beat. Marcus wasn't one for drama. He was my practical son, the one who thought everything through, who balanced checkbooks and fixed leaky faucets without complaint. If he was worried, there was reason to be. Of course, sweetheart, what is it? Does Lisa wear expensive perfume, like really expensive French perfume? I laughed, thinking he must be considering buying her a gift. No, Marcus. You know, Lisa only uses that lavender soap from the drugstore, the one that comes in the purple bottle. She's used it for years. We can't afford those fancy department store perfumes, you know that? The silence that followed was so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Marcus, are you still there? Mom. His voice had changed, become harder, more confused. That's impossible. Yesterday when Lisa came to my office to bring me lunch, she hugged me. She smelled like Chanel No. 5. I know that scent because my secretary wears it and it's $300 a bottle. I even commented on it and Lisa just laughed and changed the subject. But this morning when she kissed me goodbye, she smelled like that cheap lavender soap again. How is that possible? I stood frozen in the hallway, my mind racing. Marcus, you must be mistaken. Maybe someone at the restaurant where she bought your lunch was wearing perfume and the smell transferred. No, Mom, it was her. I'm sure of it, and there's something else. He hesitated. Last week, she came to have lunch with me and she held her fork with her left hand. Lisa is right-handed, Mom. I've been married to her for 7 years. I know which hand my wife uses. Before I could respond, I heard the water shut off upstairs. The bathroom door opened and Lisa's voice called down, sweet and familiar. Mom Rose, have you seen my blue cardigan? I can't find it anywhere. It's in the laundry room, honey, I called back, my voice somehow steady despite my racing heart. I turned back to the phone, lowering my voice. Marcus, Lisa is here, she just got out of the shower. Are you absolutely certain about what you're telling me? I don't know what to think anymore, Mom, but something isn't right, I can feel it. We said our goodbyes, but his words echoed in my mind long after I hung up. I stood in that hallway, staring at the family photos on the wall, Marcus and Lisa's wedding day, Emily's first birthday, last Christmas with all of us gathered around the tree. Everything looked so perfect, so normal. But Marcus's voice, filled with confusion and worry, kept playing in my head like a broken record. Lisa came downstairs 15 minutes later, dressed in jeans and a simple white blouse, her dark hair still damp from the shower. She smiled at me, that same warm smile I'd come to love over the years. I'm heading to the market, Mom Rose. Do you need anything special for dinner? I studied her face, looking for anything that seemed off. But she looked exactly like Lisa, same dark brown eyes, same small mole on her left cheek, same way of tilting her head when she asked a question. Just some fresh tomatoes if they look good, I said, forcing myself to smile back. And maybe some basil for the pasta sauce. She kissed my cheek, I smelled lavender soap, and grabbed her canvas shopping bag from the hook by the door. I'll be back in an hour or so. I watched her walk down our front path, past the rose bushes I'd planted when Marcus was just a boy, and disappear around the corner toward Main Street where the farmer's market set up every Tuesday and Friday. The moment she was out of sight, I sank onto the living room couch, my legs suddenly weak. My name is Rose Mitchell, and I'm 68 years old. I've lived in this house in Portland for 40 years, raised 2 sons here after my husband died when they were young. Marcus is my oldest, a good man who works too hard and loves his family fiercely. My younger son, David, moved to Seattle for his career in tech, but we talk every week. Lisa came into our lives 7 years ago, and I thought she was a blessing. She was beautiful, kind, and seemed to adore Marcus. She worked part-time at a local bookstore, took care of Emily with patience and love, and always remembered my birthday. She called me Mom Rose from the very beginning, and I'd grown to love her like my own daughter. But now, Marcus's words were like seeds of doubt planted in fertile soil, and I could feel them beginning to sprout. I got up and walked through the house, noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. In the bathroom, I opened the medicine cabinet. There was Lisa's lavender soap, nearly empty. But pushed to the back, behind the aspirin and Marcus's shaving cream, was a small bottle of perfume. I pulled it out and read the label, Chanel No. 5. My hands began to shake. I put it back carefully, exactly where I'd found it, and went to Lisa and Marcus's bedroom. I felt guilty snooping, but something was pushing me forward, some instinct I couldn't ignore. In her closet, I found her usual clothes, simple dresses, jeans, comfortable sweaters. But in the very back, hidden behind winter coats even though it was summer, was a garment bag. I unzipped it slowly. Inside was a designer dress, the kind with a label I recognized from magazines but could never afford. The price tag was still attached, $2,400. My heart pounded. Marcus made a decent living, but we weren't wealthy. There was no way Lisa could afford a dress like this on her bookstore salary. I zipped the bag closed and sat on the edge of their bed, my mind spinning. Then I noticed something else. On Lisa's nightstand was a notebook, the kind she used for grocery lists and Emily's school schedule. I picked it up, feeling like I was crossing a line but unable to stop myself. The handwriting changed from page to page. Some entries were in neat, right-slanted script. Others were in a looser, left-slanted hand. I flipped through the pages, my breath catching in my throat. It was like 2 different people had been writing in the same notebook. I remembered Marcus's words. She held her fork with her left hand. I put the notebook back, my hands trembling, and went downstairs. I needed to think to understand what was happening. But every explanation I came up with seemed impossible. Lisa returned an hour later exactly as she'd promised, carrying 2 canvas bags filled with fresh produce. She was humming softly, a song I recognized from the radio. She smelled like lavender soap and fresh air. The tomatoes looked beautiful, Mom Rose, she said, unloading them onto the kitchen counter. And I found the most perfect basil. The man at the stand gave me extra because I'm a regular. She was holding the bags with her right hand, transferring vegetables with her right hand. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. That evening, over dinner, I watched Lisa carefully. She ate with her right hand, cut her food with her right hand, reached for the salt with her right hand. Emily chattered about her day at school, and Lisa listened attentively, asking questions and laughing at her daughter's stories. Marcus was quiet, I noticed, watching his wife with an expression I couldn't quite read. After dinner, while Lisa was putting Emily to bed, Marcus helped me with the dishes. "Did you notice anything, Mom?" he asked quietly. "She seems perfectly normal tonight," I admitted. "Right-handed, smells like lavender soap, acts exactly like Lisa." "I know," he said, scrubbing a plate with more force than necessary. "That's what makes this so crazy. Maybe I'm losing my mind." "You're not losing your mind," I said firmly. "I found expensive perfume in the bathroom cabinet, and a designer dress in her closet that costs more than our monthly grocery budget." Marcus's hands stilled in the soapy water. He turned to look at me, his face pale. What? I told him about the Chanel No. 5, about the $2,400 dress, about the notebook with 2 different handwriting styles. As I spoke, I watched the color drain from my son's face. There has to be an explanation, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. I'm going to find out what it is, I promised him. But Marcus, we have to be careful. We can't let Lisa know we're suspicious. Not yet. He nodded, and we finished the dishes in silence, both of us lost in our own troubled thoughts. That night, I lay in my bed on the first floor. My knees weren't good enough for stairs anymore and stared at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about Lisa, about Marcus's confusion, about that expensive dress and the changing handwriting. Nothing made sense. The next morning, I decided to pay more attention. I started a small notebook of my own, hidden in my bedroom drawer. I began writing down everything I noticed. Wednesday, 8 a.m. Lisa makes breakfast. Uses right hand, smells like lavender soap. Makes Emily's favorite pancakes without checking recipe, she usually has to look it up. Kisses Marcus goodbye warmly. Wednesday, 3 p.m. Lisa returns from bookstore. Uses left hand to open door. Seems irritated when Emily asks for help with homework. Snaps at me when I ask about her day. Different perfume smells sweet and expensive. Thursday, 9 a.m. Lisa takes Emily to school. Right-handed again. Patient and loving. Lavender soap smell, remembers it's my friend Helen's birthday and suggests we send flowers. Thursday, 4 p.m. Lisa home from errands, left-handed, distant and distracted, expensive perfume. Doesn't remember Helen's birthday when I mention the flowers. The entries grew longer, more detailed. I was documenting my daughter-in-law's life, and what I was seeing terrified me. It was as if 2 different people were living in Lisa's body, alternating days or even parts of days. On Friday morning, I was watering my roses in the front garden when Helen, my neighbor and dear friend for 30 years, came over with her little terrier on a leash. "Rose, dear, how are you?" she called out, her round face cheerful under her sun hat. "I'm well, Helen, just tending to these roses. They're not blooming as much as I'd like." She came closer, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Rose, I need to ask you something, and I hope you don't think I'm being nosy." "Of course not. What is it?" "It's about Lisa." Helen glanced toward my house as if afraid of being overheard. "Yesterday, I saw her getting out of a very expensive car downtown. A black Mercedes. A man was driving, someone I'd never seen before, very well dressed. He kissed her hand before she got out." My trowel fell from my hand into the dirt. "Are you sure it was Lisa?" "Positive. I called out to her, but she didn't hear me or pretended not to." Helen's face was concerned. "Rose, I don't want to spread gossip, but I thought you should know." The way that man looked at her. It wasn't the look you give a friend. I bent to pick up my trowel, my mind racing. "Thank you for telling me, Helen. I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation." But as Helen walked away, I knew there wasn't a reasonable explanation. Not for the perfume, not for the changing handwriting, not for the expensive dress, and certainly not for a mysterious man in a Mercedes kissing my daughter-in-law's hand. I went inside and added this to my notebook, my handwriting shaky with emotion. That afternoon, I made a decision. I had to follow Lisa. I had to see for myself what was happening. The next time she went out, claiming to go to the bookstore or the market, I would follow her. I felt guilty even thinking it. I'd never been a suspicious person, never one to spy or snoop. But my son's happiness was at stake, and my granddaughter's security. I had to know the truth. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. On Saturday morning, Lisa came downstairs dressed more nicely than usual. A pretty floral dress I'd never seen before, makeup carefully applied, hair styled instead of just pulled back in her usual ponytail. "I'm meeting my book club for lunch," she announced brightly. "We're discussing that new mystery everyone's been reading. I'll be back by 3. Marcus had taken Emily to her swimming lesson, so it was just Lisa and me in the house. I smiled and nodded. "Have fun, dear." The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my purse and my old sun hat and hurried to my own car, a 12-year-old sedan that Marcus kept running for me. My hands shook as I started the engine. I'd never followed anyone in my life. I felt like a character in one of those mystery novels Lisa claimed to be discussing. I stayed far enough back that she wouldn't notice me, but close enough to see where she was going. She didn't head toward the library where her book club usually met. Instead, she drove to the other side of town to a neighborhood I rarely visited, where the houses were bigger, the lawns more manicured, the cars in the driveways worth more than my entire house. She pulled into the driveway of a large colonial-style home, white with black shutters and a perfect garden. A man came out before she'd even turned off her car. He was tall, maybe in his 50s, with silver hair and an expensive-looking suit even though it was Saturday. He opened her car door and she stepped out, laughing at something he said. Then he kissed her, not on the hand like Helen had seen, but on the lips. A long, intimate kiss that made my stomach turn. I sat in my car half a block away, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. This was my daughter-in-law, Marcus's wife, Emily's mother, kissing another man in broad daylight. I wanted to march up to that house and confront them both. But something held me back, maybe the shock, maybe the need to understand more before I acted. They went inside together, his arm around her waist in a way that spoke of familiarity and comfort. I sat there for 10 minutes, 15, 20, my mind a whirlwind of anger and confusion. Then I did something I'd never done before in my 68 years of life. I got out of my car and crept closer to the house. I know it was wrong. I know I was trespassing, invading privacy, doing things my mother would have been ashamed of. But I had to know. I had to understand what was destroying my family. There was a side window with the curtains partially open. I stayed hidden behind a large hydrangea bush and peered inside. What I saw made my blood run cold. Lisa, my Lisa, was sitting on a leather couch in a room that looked like it belonged in a magazine. She was laughing, drinking wine from a crystal glass, her shoes kicked off, her feet tucked under her. The man sat beside her, his hand on her knee, looking at her with obvious affection. They looked like a couple, comfortable and intimate in a way that comes from time and familiarity. But it was what happened next that changed everything. The doorbell rang. I heard it even from outside. The man got up to answer it and I crept around to see the front door. When it opened, I nearly gasped aloud. Standing on the doorstep was Lisa, not the Lisa inside the house, another Lisa, identical in every way. Same dark hair, same face, same height. But this Lisa was dressed differently in jeans and a simple t-shirt, carrying a worn canvas bag. She looked nervous, uncertain. The Lisa from inside the house came to the door and I watched the two of them standing there face to face. They were twins, identical twins. My mind struggled to process what I was seeing. Lisa had never mentioned having a twin sister. In 7 years of marriage, 7 years of family dinners and holidays and conversations, she'd never once said she was a twin. The Lisa in jeans spoke first, her voice drifting out to where I hid. "You said you'd pay me today." "I need the money, Lisa, my daughter's medical bills." I know, the other Lisa said impatiently. She pulled out an envelope and handed it over. "Same as always. You cover for me Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and one overnight per week. My husband thinks I'm at book club or visiting my sick aunt in Eugene." The Lisa in jeans took the envelope and I saw tears in her eyes. "This is wrong. You're making me lie to your family. That little girl, Emily, she calls me mama when you make me pick her up from school. It breaks my heart." "Just do what I pay you for, Sarah," the wealthy Lisa snapped. "You need the money, I need the coverage. It's a simple business arrangement." "It's not simple," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Your husband is a good man. Your mother-in-law is kind to me even though she doesn't know I'm not you. That little girl deserves better than this." "My daughter is fine," Lisa said coldly. "And it's none of your business what I do with my life. You gave up the right to judge me when you agreed to this arrangement." I stood there, my whole body shaking with rage and shock. Everything made sense now. The changing perfume, the switching between left and right hands, the different personalities, the handwriting. It wasn't Lisa who was changing. It was two different women. My daughter-in-law had been paying her identical twin sister to impersonate her so she could carry on an affair with this wealthy man. Sarah walked away, clutching the envelope, her shoulders slumped. I wanted to call out to her, to tell her I understood, to thank her for trying to be good to Emily. But I stayed hidden, my mind working furiously. I needed a plan, I needed proof, and I needed to protect my son and granddaughter. I crept back to my car and drove home, my hands shaking so badly I nearly ran a stop sign. When I got home, Marcus's car was in the driveway. He and Emily were back from swimming and Lisa was home too. I could hear her in the kitchen, singing softly as she prepared lunch. I went straight to my room and locked the door. I sat on my bed and tried to breathe, tried to think clearly. I had just witnessed something that would shatter my son's world, but I couldn't just blurt it out. I needed evidence. I needed a plan. I took out my notebook and wrote down everything I'd seen, every word I'd heard. Then I sat back and thought about Sarah, the other twin. She'd seemed reluctant, ashamed even. She talked about her daughter's medical bills. She was poor while Lisa was living this double life with a wealthy man. An idea began to form in my mind. If I could talk to Sarah alone, away from Lisa, maybe she would help me. Maybe together we could end this deception in a way that would protect Emily and help Marcus understand the truth. That night at dinner, I watched the Lisa sitting at our table. She was the good Lisa tonight, right-handed, patient with Emily, affectionate with Marcus. She smelled like lavender soap. This was Sarah, I realized. The poor twin sister who was being paid to pretend to be my daughter-in-law. The one who'd said it broke her heart when Emily called her mama. I looked at Marcus, saw the love in his eyes as he looked at his wife, not knowing he was looking at an imposter. My heart ached for him, for what was coming. After dinner, after Emily was in bed, I knocked on Marcus's door. He was sitting at his desk working on some papers from the office. "Marcus, we need to talk," I said quietly. He looked up and something in my face made him put down his pen. "What is it, Mom?" I closed the door and told him everything. About following Lisa, about seeing her with the wealthy man, about the two women at the door. Marcus's face went from disbelief to shock to anger to devastation. When I finished, he sat in silence for a long moment. "Twins," he finally said, his voice hollow. "She has a twin sister and she never told me. For 7 years she's been lying to me." "I'm so sorry, honey," I said, taking his hand. "But we need to prove this, and I think I know how." Over the next week, I put my plan into action. I started by finding out more about Sarah. It wasn't hard. In a city like Portland, birth records are public if you know where to look. With the help of Marcus's lawyer friend, we discovered that Lisa and Sarah had been born to a poor family in rural Oregon. They'd been separated when they were teenagers after their parents died. Lisa had been adopted by a wealthy family who sent her to private schools, while Sarah had gone into foster care. We found Sarah's address, a small apartment in a rundown part of the city. We found out about her daughter, Mia, who was 8 years old and had juvenile diabetes. The medical bills were crushing Sarah, who worked 2 jobs just to keep up. Finally, I knew enough. One afternoon when Marcus was at work and Emily was at school, I drove to Sarah's apartment. My heart pounded as I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked on door 3C. Sarah opened the door, and for a moment she looked at me without recognition. Then her eyes widened. "Mrs. Mitchell," she whispered. "You're Lisa's mother-in-law, and you're her twin sister," I said gently. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped back to let me enter. The apartment was tiny and shabby, but very clean. Children's drawings were taped to the refrigerator. Through an open door, I could see a small bedroom with a single bed and medical supplies on a nightstand. "Mia's at school," Sarah said, following my gaze. "She's a good girl, smart, she wants to be a doctor someday." Her voice was full of love and pride. I sat down on her worn couch. "Sarah, I know everything. I saw you at that man's house. I heard what Lisa said to you. I know she's been paying you to impersonate her." Sarah's face crumpled and she sank into a chair, crying. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to lie to you or to Marcus or to that sweet little girl. But I was desperate. Mia's insulin costs so much and the hospital bills just kept coming. When Lisa found me 2 years ago and made her offer, I thought I could do it just a few times, just enough to get caught up on the bills. But then it kept going and I got trapped in the lie." "Why did she need you to cover for her?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. "She's having an affair with Charles Thompson. He's a millionaire, real estate development. She met him at some charity event. She wants his life, his money, but she doesn't want to lose Marcus's steady income or the respectability of being married. So she created this arrangement. I pretend to be her a few times a week so she can be with Charles. She pays me $500 each time. And you just agreed?" I couldn't keep the judgment out of my voice. Sarah looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell, do you know what it's like to watch your child suffer because you can't afford her medicine? Do you know what it's like to lie awake at night wondering if she'll survive? I would do anything for Mia, anything, even this terrible thing." My anger softened. I understood maternal desperation. I'd raised 2 sons alone after my husband died, worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I'd never been faced with Sarah's impossible choice, but I understood the instinct. Sarah, I said gently, I need your help to expose Lisa, not to hurt you, but to save my son and granddaughter. Will you help me? She wiped her tears and nodded slowly. Yes, this has to end. I can't keep lying. And Emily deserves better. She deserves a mother who really loves her, not someone who sees her as an inconvenience. Together, we made a plan. 2 weeks later, I organized a family dinner. I told Marcus it was to celebrate Emily's good report card. I insisted Lisa be there, the real Lisa. I made Marcus's favorite pot roast, Emily's favorite chocolate cake. I set the table with my good china, the set that had belonged to my mother. Lisa arrived in a good mood. She'd probably been with Charles earlier that day. She kissed Marcus, hugged Emily, complimented the food. She was playing the role of perfect wife and mother, wearing her lavender soap, using her right hand. But I'd also invited Sarah. She was waiting in my room, nervous but determined. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself. I went to my room and brought Sarah back with me. The two of us walked into the dining room together. Marcus had known this was coming, but his face still went pale when he saw them standing side by side, 2 identical women. Emily gasped, her fork clattering to her plate. Mama, she said, looking from one to the other. There are 2 of you. Lisa jumped up, her face going white then red with fury. What is this? What are you doing here, Sarah? Sit down, Lisa, I said firmly. It's time everyone knew the truth. Marcus stood up, his voice cold and hard in a way I'd never heard before. Yes, Lisa. Please explain to me and your daughter why there are 2 of you. For a moment, I thought Lisa would try to lie to make up some story. But she looked at Sarah, at me, at Marcus's face, and something in her seemed to break. She laughed, a bitter, ugly sound. Fine, you want the truth? Yes, Sarah is my twin sister. Yes, I've been paying her to pretend to be me so I could see Charles. Why? Because I'm tired of this boring middle-class life. I'm tired of clipping coupons and shopping at Target. Charles can give me everything, a big house, expensive clothes, trips to Paris, everything I deserve. Emily started to cry and Sarah immediately went to her, kneeling beside her chair. I'm sorry, sweetheart, she said softly, tears streaming down her own face. I'm so sorry. Marcus's voice was shaking with controlled rage. You used your own sister, you lied to me for years, you neglected our daughter, for what? For money, for a man who's probably using you the same way you used Sarah? Charles loves me, Lisa shot back. He's going to leave his wife for me, we're going to be together. No, he's not, I said quietly. I pulled out a folder and handed it to Marcus. I hired a private investigator. Charles Thompson has been married for 30 years. He has 3 mistresses that we know of. You're just one of many, Lisa. He's never leaving his wife. Lisa snatched the folder, her hands shaking as she read the investigator's report. I watched the color drain from her face as she saw the photos, Charles with other women, entering hotels, having romantic dinners. The truth was undeniable. This isn't real, she whispered. You made this up. It's all real, Marcus said. I've seen the complete report. You destroyed our family for a man who's been playing you for a fool. Lisa looked around the table, at Marcus's cold anger, at Emily crying in Sarah's arms, at me standing with my arms crossed. Then she grabbed her purse and ran out of the house. We heard her car start, tires squealing as she drove away. The silence she left behind was heavy and painful. Emily sobbed harder and Sarah held her, rocking her gently. It's okay, baby, everything's going to be okay. Marcus sat down heavily, his head in his hands. I went to him, put my hand on his shoulder. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. Mom, what do I do now? You divorce her, I said firmly. You protect Emily and you heal. Over the next few months, that's exactly what we did. Marcus filed for divorce. Lisa tried to fight it at first, but when faced with all the evidence, the bank records showing payments to Sarah, the photos from the private investigator, Sarah's testimony, she gave up. She signed the papers and moved in with Charles Thompson. 6 months later, we heard he'd broken up with her and moved on to his next mistress. Lisa left Portland, and we haven't heard from her since. Sarah became a regular part of our lives. She was never trying to replace Lisa, but she became Aunt Sarah to Emily, a friend to Marcus, and like a daughter to me. I helped her get better health insurance for Mia through Marcus's company plan. She found a better job and moved into a nicer apartment. One evening, about a year after that fateful dinner, Sarah was at our house helping Emily with her homework. Marcus came home from work and sat down next to them, and I watched from the kitchen as he looked at Sarah with something new in his eyes, something like hope. It was another 6 months before Marcus asked Sarah out on a real date. I know this is weird, he told me beforehand. She looks exactly like Lisa. But she's nothing like Lisa, I reminded him. She has a good heart, Marcus, that's what matters. They took it slowly, carefully, for Emily's sake and for Mia's. The two girls became like sisters, and slowly, painfully but surely, my family healed. 2 years after that terrible dinner, I stood in our backyard watching Marcus and Sarah get married. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family. Emily was the flower girl and Mia was the junior bridesmaid. Both girls were smiling, genuinely happy. Sarah wore a simple white dress, and when Marcus put the ring on her finger, she cried. I promise to always be honest with you, she said. I promise to love Emily as my own. I promise to be the wife you deserve. Marcus pulled her close. I know you will. I trust you. Trust, that word meant everything. As I watched them dance their first dance as husband and wife, I thought about how strange life is. How my daughter-in-law's cruel deception had led us to Sarah. How the woman who was paid to lie to us had become the woman who saved us. How sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. Emily ran up to me, her face glowing. Grandma Rose, are you happy? I hugged her tight. Yes, sweetheart, I'm very happy. And I was. My family was whole again, healed, not just repaired. We'd been through fire, but we'd come out stronger. That night after the wedding, I sat on my porch watching the stars. I thought about trust and betrayal, about lies and truth, about the power of a mother's love, both Sarah's desperate love for Mia and my fierce love for Marcus. I thought about the perfume that never lied, about the small details that had revealed the truth. I'd learned that sometimes you have to look closer, pay attention to the little things, trust your instincts even when everyone tells you you're being silly. Most importantly, I learned that family isn't always about blood. Sarah wasn't blood to me, but she'd become my daughter in every way that mattered. Mia had become my granddaughter. And Marcus had found real love with a woman who valued him, not for what he could give her, but for who he was. As I sat there in the peaceful evening air, I smiled. Yes, the perfume had never lied. Those small inconsistencies, the changing scents, the switching hands, the varying personalities had been breadcrumbs leading me to the truth. And the truth, though painful at first, had set us all free. The story you've just heard has been changed in names and places to protect the identities of those involved. I'm not sharing this to judge, but with the hope that someone listening will stop and think about the secrets that might be hiding in their own homes. Sometimes the people closest to us are strangers wearing familiar faces. Sometimes the truth is hidden in the smallest details, a scent, a gesture, a moment of inconsistency. I want to know, if you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have confronted Lisa immediately, or would you have investigated first like I did? Would you have forgiven Sarah for her role in the deception, or would you have blamed her equally? These are not easy questions, and I don't pretend to have all the answers. All I know is that I followed my instincts, protected my family, and somehow, we found our way to something better than what we had before. God always blesses those who seek the truth with courage, and I truly believe that. Sometimes the hardest thing we can do is face reality, tear down the comfortable lies we've been living with, and rebuild from the broken pieces. But when we do, when we have the strength to confront the truth no matter how painful, we often find that what we build afterward is stronger and more genuine than what we lost. Sarah once told me, months after everything had settled, Mrs. Mitchell, Mom Rose, I spent 2 years pretending to be someone I wasn't, and I hated every minute of it. But those 2 years taught me something valuable. They taught me that I never want to lie again about anything to anyone, especially not to the people I love. That's the lesson in all of this, I think. That honesty, no matter how difficult, is always better than the most comfortable lie. That trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, but only with complete transparency and time. That love, real love, isn't about perfection or pretending. It's about showing up as your authentic self, flaws and all, and choosing someone who loves you anyway. Marcus is happier now than I ever saw him with Lisa. Sarah makes him laugh in a way Lisa never did. She asks about his day and actually listens to his answers. She helps Emily with her homework without resentment. She includes Mia in everything so both girls feel equally loved. She remembers my doctor's appointments and calls to check on me. She's teaching me to use my smartphone so I can video chat with my son David in Seattle. These are small things, perhaps, but life is made up of small things. And I learned that small things like the scent of perfume, like which hand someone uses to hold a fork, like the slight changes in handwriting, can reveal enormous truths. Emily is 9 now, thriving in school, secure in the love of her father, her new mother, her sister Mia, and her grandmother. She doesn't talk about Lisa much anymore. When she does, it's without bitterness, just a child's simple acceptance that sometimes people aren't who we need them to be. But she adores Sarah. Last week, she made Mother's Day cards at school, one for Sarah and one for me. Sarah's card said, "Thank you for being my real mom, I love you." Sarah cried when she read it, happy tears this time. Mia is doing well too. Her diabetes is under control now with proper treatment and monitoring. She's excelling in school just like her mother dreamed. She calls Marcus Dad and me Grandma Rose, and there's no difference in my heart between her and Emily. They're both my granddaughters, both my precious girls. As for Lisa, we heard through mutual acquaintances that she moved to California after Charles Thompson ended their relationship. She's apparently engaged to another wealthy man, someone she met at a yacht club. I don't wish her ill, but I don't waste thoughts on her either. She made her choices, chose money and status over love and family. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, but I'm grateful she's no longer part of our lives. The real hero of this story in my mind is Sarah. She was put in an impossible position, a desperate mother willing to do anything to save her sick child. Yes, what she did was wrong. Yes, she participated in a deception that hurt people. But she did it out of love, not greed. And when given the chance to make things right, she took it, even though it meant losing the income she desperately needed. After the truth came out, I made sure Sarah never had to choose between her integrity and her daughter's health again. Marcus added both Sarah and Mia to his insurance. I helped Sarah find a better job through connections in my church community. We made sure she had support, real support, so she'd never again have to compromise her values to survive. And you know what? Sarah has repaid that kindness 1,000 times over. Not with money or grand gestures, but with loyalty, honesty, and love. She shows up. She keeps her promises. She tells the truth even when it's hard. She's become the daughter-in-law I always hoped for, the one I thought I had in Lisa but never really did. There's a saying I heard once: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I wish I'd known to look for the signs earlier. I wish I'd trusted my instincts when things first started feeling off. But perhaps everything happened exactly when it was supposed to. Perhaps we all needed to go through that pain to appreciate the peace we have now. I'm 68 years old, and I've learned more in the past 3 years than in all the decades before. I've learned that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like your daughter-in-law smiling over breakfast. I've learned that goodness doesn't always look perfect. Sometimes it looks like a desperate mother making terrible choices for the right reasons. I've learned that families can break and heal, can lose members and gain new ones, can transform into something different but better. Most importantly, I've learned to pay attention, to trust that little voice that says something isn't right, to believe my own observations even when everyone else thinks I'm being paranoid or silly. That voice, those instincts, they exist for a reason. They're trying to protect us, to warn us, to guide us toward truth. If you're watching this and something in your own life doesn't add up, if your husband's behavior has changed, if your wife has new habits she can't explain, if your mother-in-law seems different on some days than others, pay attention. Write things down, look for patterns, trust yourself. You're not crazy, you're not paranoid. You might just be the only one seeing clearly. But also remember this: finding the truth is only the first step. What you do with that truth, how you handle it, who you protect, and how you move forward, that's what really matters. I could have confronted Lisa publicly, could have humiliated her, could have turned Sarah away and refused to understand her situation. Instead, I chose to investigate quietly, to plan carefully, to consider everyone involved, including the innocent parties who would be hurt by the revelation. I chose to extend grace to Sarah while holding Lisa accountable. I chose to protect Emily and Mia above all else. I chose to help my son heal rather than feeding his anger. These choices weren't always easy, and I didn't always make them perfectly, but I tried to choose love and wisdom over revenge and bitterness. That's my advice to anyone facing a similar situation. Seek the truth, yes, but then handle it with wisdom. Think about the children involved, the innocent parties who will suffer through no fault of their own. Think about the difference between justice and revenge. Think about what kind of person you want to be on the other side of this crisis. Today, 3 years after that terrible dinner where the truth came out, I sit on my porch in the evening and watch my family. Marcus and Sarah are inside, cooking dinner together, laughing at some private joke. Emily and Mia are in the yard, drawing with sidewalk chalk, their heads bent together over some elaborate artwork. My son David and his family are visiting from Seattle, adding to the happy chaos. This is my family now, imperfect, pieced together from broken parts, but real, honest. Built on truth instead of lies, on choice instead of obligation, on love instead of convenience. The perfume never lied. It told me the truth in its own quiet way, through the alternating scents of expensive French perfume and cheap drugstore soap. It was just one clue among many, but it was the first one, the one that started me paying attention. So I say to you, wherever you are, whatever you're facing, pay attention to the perfume. Pay attention to the small inconsistencies, the little things that don't quite add up. Your instincts are trying to tell you something. Listen to them. Investigate. Seek the truth. And when you find it, as painful as it might be, remember that truth is the foundation of everything good. Lies might be comfortable temporarily, but they're poisons slowly destroying everything they touch. Truth might hurt in the moment, but it's the medicine that heals. My family was sick with lies, infected with deception. The cure was painful. It involved exposure, confrontation, loss, and grief. But now we're healthy, truly healthy, in a way we never were when Lisa was playing her games. I look at Sarah now, this woman who looks exactly like the one who betrayed us, and I see only goodness. I see a mother who loved her child enough to compromise herself, but who also had the strength to stop when given the chance. I see a wife who cherishes my son. I see a woman who calls me mom with genuine affection, not as a manipulation tactic. And I'm grateful. Grateful for the perfume that wouldn't lie, for the instincts that wouldn't be silenced, for the courage to investigate, and for the wisdom to handle the truth with grace. Emily just ran up to the porch, her face flushed with happiness. Grandma Rose, come see our drawing. We made a picture of our whole family. You, me, Mia, Dad, Mom, Sarah, Uncle David, and everyone. I get up from my chair and follow her to the driveway where a rainbow of chalk has created a sprawling family portrait. Everyone is holding hands, with stick figure smiles and hearts drawn above their heads. In a child's perfect understanding of what matters, she's drawn the family we've become, not the one we pretended to be. It's beautiful, sweetheart, I tell her, and I mean it. It is beautiful, not despite our messy, complicated history, but maybe because of it. We've been through fire and come out refined, stronger, more precious for having been tested. The sun is setting now, painting the Portland sky in shades of pink and gold. Inside, I can hear laughter, the clatter of dishes, the sound of people who love each other preparing to share a meal. These are the sounds of home, real home, built on truth. And somewhere out there, perhaps, there's someone else noticing that something doesn't quite add up. Someone else smelling perfume that doesn't match, noticing handwriting that changes, observing inconsistencies they've been told to ignore. To that person, I say, trust yourself. Investigate, be brave enough to face whatever truth you find. Because on the other side of that truth, no matter how painful, is the possibility of something real, something honest, something worth having. The perfume never lied, and neither should we. Thank you for staying with me until this moment. This story has been my testimony, my lesson learned, my gift to anyone who needs to hear it. I truly want to know your thoughts. Have you ever noticed small signs that something was wrong? Did you investigate or did you ignore them? What would you do in my situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe to this channel if this story touched your heart or taught you something. And remember, God blesses those who have the courage to seek truth and the wisdom to handle it with grace. Until next time, this is Auntie Rose reminding you that the smallest details often tell the biggest truths. Pay attention, trust yourself, and never ever ignore the perfume that doesn't quite smell right. God bless you all.